Hi, I'm RC Jim. Have you ever thought about getting into Express LRS? Long range, good 20 kilometers or so range is easily obtained with something like this. And for a line of sight flyer like myself, yeah, I don't need 20 kilometer range, but I sure like the idea of having no question at all that I'm going to have a good radio connection with my plane at all times, pretty well no matter what. So there's something there that's really nice. In addition, the telemetry that these things provide is something absolutely fantastic. They give you signal strength, but they also tell you the percentage of the packets that are getting through, what percentage of the signals going from your transmitter to the receiver are actually received. It gives you a percentage, so most of the time 100%, 98%, something like that, but whatever it might be. High packet rate, good latency, quick responses and things such as that. And while you can get the name brand type things, such as the Radio Master ones, which are superb, you can also buy very low cost ones off of various websites, such as this little guy here. That's one that I got off of AliExpress, 7-channel ELRS receiver, and I didn't pay very much for it. And it's got all the telemetry and everything else along with it. In a very small sort of package. That's absolutely tremendous. But it may be that as you've heard about it, you've heard that, well, it's rather complicated and you got to set up a computer and do all kinds of things. Well, I'm going to try to help uncomplicate it for you today. Now, it's not going to be as simple as pressing the bind button on a receiver and clicking bind on your transmitter and you're all done. Not quite that simple, but still pretty easy. And I'm also going to show you how you can do it on a mobile phone, cell phone, something that has Wi-Fi connectivity. Don't have to be connected to the internet. We're going to be using Wi-Fi to connect to either the radio transmitter or to the receiver, but can be pretty straightforward. So let's get right into it. Now, first off, you have to have the right equipment. So I've got a Radio Master T16S transmitter. I've got the 4-in-1 module as the internal module, so that's the one that I use with my DSMX planes with Lemon receivers and so forth. And that, admittedly, is my primary setup. But I've also got an ELRS module on the back. Now, doesn't make any difference whether you got the ELRS as an external one or the internal one, as long as you've got it. So in this particular case, it's a Radio Master ELRS module that plugs into the JR bay on the back. It's got its own antenna, and that is going to do the job. So we've got a transmitter. We need to have an ELRS receiver. So in line with the Radio Master theme, here's the Radio Master one. More expensive than the little Chinese guy that I guess they're all made in China, but the El Cheapo one. But it's nice having a hard case around it to protect it from the things that are going on, and protection for the connections that are in there. So obviously better than the El Cheapo. Nice and small. This is a 5-channel one, which is going to suit most of the things that we do. We need to be able to power up the receiver to set it up, so I've got my little battery here that I use for test purposes out of an old nitro plane. Could just hook it up with an ESC power supply, whatever you might have. So along with that, we're going to need a device that connects to Wi-Fi. And it could be a computer, but hey, yeah, good old mobile phone, cell phone, that's going to do the job for you. And that's what we're going to be using in this example. Okay, so with that, we are all set to get started. Now, the very first thing that we're going to do is to prepare the transmitter. So let's go ahead and fire that up. Okay, we need to have a model. And so typically what you'd be doing... Yeah, okay, I understand, lady. The typical thing that you'd be doing is you'd be picking a plane that's got similar controls to whatever you want. It makes no difference as to whether it's ELRS one or not. Well, later on it will. It'll make it easier when you've already got one. But if you don't have one, just pick a plane that you've already got that's very similar to the one that you're going to fly and use that as a template. But I've just gone ahead and created a new one here, and you can do that as well. And this is the one they're already in. Okay, so we've got a model that we're going to work with. So the first thing we have to do is we need to tell the transmitter that we've got an ELRS module that we want to use. So hit the model button, and you've got the internal and external. So we don't want to use the internal one, we want to use the external one. So we go down to that. Then in the mode, we pick Crossfire, CRSF, and this is not a Crossfire system, but ELRS uses the CRSF protocols in communicating with the radio. So you pick Crossfire. Okay, you can leave those things on there like they are, but you need to pick a unique receiver number. And so in this particular case, I haven't used 0 for anything else, so I'm just going to use 0. And that's already in there, so I don't need to do anything more with that. And that's done. So we now have the external module identified as being what is going to be used. Now, I might just mention while we're here that this bind button down here we're not going to use. It's going to be tempting to click that and connect, and there is a way that you can do that, but that's not the method that we're going to use. Okay, the one we're going to use I think is better than that. Okay, so we get out of this, and now we press the Sys button, and we want to get over in our Tools menu. Okay, and in the Lua scripts under Tools, you should have Express LRS. Okay, if you don't have that, update your Lua scripts. It's a very standard set of one these days that would be shipped with most radios. So we go into our Lua script, and we want to scroll down to Wi-Fi connectivity. Okay, Wi-Fi connectivity. So we pick that one, and we're going to get ready to enable the Wi-Fi. Now, for this, we have to have our Wi-Fi device close to the radio because it's a very low power sort of thing. It's just designed for doing this procedure that we're going to do here. So have your phone or computer sitting right next to the transmitter. We're going to go to our settings, and we don't want display and brightness anymore. We want Wi-Fi. Okay, so go to our Wi-Fi. And so now with being able to see the Wi-Fi settings, I'm going to say Enable Wi-Fi. Once that happens, the network is going to come up on the phone. And Express LRS TX, so the transmitter, that's connected to that because I've used it before and it's said to automatically connect. Okay, so that's all connected. Then what might happen is a web browser might come up that already has the stuff that you need on it. But if that doesn't happen, then just open up a web browser and go to 10.0.0.1. 10.0.0.1. Okay, and we get this right here. Now, this tells us what we're connected to. It's a Ranger Micro 2.4 gigahertz transmitter. That's the thing on the back there. Tells me the firmware version. This is 3.5.3. As long as it's a 3 point something, you're fine. Or if maybe sometime later on you're watching this and they've come up with a 4 point something, I'm sure that'd be fine as well. But anyway, we want to make sure it's at least a 3. Okay, so then we scroll down the page and we've got a place for a binding phrase. So in there, you'll put in a phrase, 8 characters or more, something that's very easy for you to remember. It's just something that's going to be unique to you that keeps your system from interfering with somebody else's system. Okay, so typical binding thing. So I've got one that I like, because it's a key thing in my life. Okay, and so I've got that in there. And now I touch save. Upload succeeded, reboot to take effect. We reboot. Okay, and so that's done. So now that that's done, in this menu, the back button may work or it may not work. Yeah, okay. So the back works, but the exit, you need to exit it. So in general, I just use these ones at the bottom anyway. But anyway, that gets us back out into their normal sort of system. Okay, now there's an option of using an arming switch. The arming switch is something that is designed for drones that puts certain safety features in place to keep you from accidentally hitting a button and doing something. It's not for any of the controls up here, but it's for the stuff that would be plugged into the back. Some of these things have got buttons on the back and other things that could mess stuff up. So the arming disables those sorts of things and does a couple of other things that are beneficial for safety reasons for the drones. But one of the things that enables that for us line of sight flyers is handy is the dynamic power. Now, this guy here, if you had the internal module, it could go up to 250 milliwatts. And for the external one, I'm not positive, but I think it can go up to 1,000 milliwatts. There's a lot of power there. And if you're flying 20 kilometers away, you need all of that power. But if you're flying line of sight, 100 milliwatts is all you probably ever would need. But why guess at it? Why just say, oh, I'm sure 100 milliwatts is going to be fine when you've got the ability to do a lot more? So what dynamic power does is it allows you to set a maximum power that it will go to, but what it's actually going to use is just whatever it needs to maintain a constant signal. So if it can get by with 25 milliwatts, it'll use 25 milliwatts. If it needs 50, it'll use 50. If it needs 100, it'll use 100. If it needs 150, it'll use 150. And it'll constantly be changing according to the conditions. And keep in mind, this thing is communicating with your receiver at hundreds of times a second. So it has plenty of time to make adjustments and all of that without affecting, your control and stuff like that. So I love that concept of dynamic power. And it's also something that I can display. I'll just go to one that I've set up for ELRS. So I select the model.
Pressure cut. Flaps up.
And so you can see here, first off, I've got receiver quality down there. And when it's connected, typically that's going to be all the way around to the far green end of things. And let's see, this one I don't have the voltage displayed, but usually I would have the voltage displayed as well. But up here, there's transmitter power. Okay, right now it's 0 milliwatts because it's not generating. Actually, there's the battery voltage up there. But anyway, transmitter power, I can be keeping an eye on that, and if I see it going up to high levels, it tells me, hey, something's going on. I might want to be concerned about this. So it allows me to have that displayed to see what's happening, and of course it's also going to be recorded in the telemetry. We've also got signal strength that we can use, and that'll also show up on the graph over here. But anyway, the telemetry is great, and this dynamic power is something I really like. And to use the dynamic power, you need to have your radio armed. So what I do, arming is done with channel 5. Only channel 5. So channel 5 is set aside, well, doesn't have to be totally set aside for it. It could have something that is a 2-position switch type function that you could have hooked up to that, but I can't imagine what you'd want to do that way. For me, what I do is I hook it up to the switch that I use to activate the throttle. So the throttle lock is when that is all the way back and the throttle doesn't work. And when it's up, the throttle is working. And when that's up, it's armed. Okay, so I use that same switch for both locking the throttle and arming the receiver. So to do that, very simple for if you're into things like this. All you got to do is go over to your mixing, and this one I actually have it on an input, but anyway, here in mixing, you got ARM, and I've picked the source as armed input because I put it there, but really you don't need the input at all. All you need to do is have the mix, and in the mix, just put in here the source. Instead of being armed, you just click that and you flick the switch.
Pressure cut. Pressure active.
So that's all you need right there, and then it'll already have the item that you need in the output thing right here. So you've already got ARM. Well, you might not. Yeah, the ARM label is coming from the mix. But anyway, it's already in there, and so you've got that in place. So we've got the switch set up on channel 5 to do the arming. We want to make sure it's going up to 100%, so if I go into the model menu and hit model again, I can flick the switch, and I can see it's plus 100% when the switch is flicked. Okay, so when I've got it armed, it's at 100%. So that's correct. That's how we want that. Next thing we need to do for this dynamic power is we need to go into our system menu. So hit the sys. We go down to Express LRS. And you've got this TX power down here. So I scroll down to TX power. So I'm going to come up here to dynamic, and instead of having that off, I'm going to put it as dynamic. So what that's going to do, it's going to use whatever power is required up to 250 milliwatts. I'm thinking that 100 milliwatts is going to be fine for anything I'm ever going to use, but I just want that extra security to know if it really needs it, it's going to really whack that signal out there. Okay, the fan threshold can stay at 500 milliwatts. If you're running up, in that sort of territory between 500 to 1,000, then you want that fan, and the fan is just simply a cooling fan that's inside of this module on the back. And that is why the external module can handle higher power than the internal module can, because the internal one doesn't have a fan. So that's all that we need to do right now with the transmitter. So we get out of that, we exit it. So let's go ahead and turn that off for now. Get that out of the way. Okay, now that we've got the transmitter all set up, it's time to get the receiver set up. And I apologize for the background noise. Not sure what sort of work the neighbor is doing. But anyway, with the receiver, we just want to apply power. So we do that here. Brown is on the bottom. Get that set off to the side. It's blinking slowly, and after about a minute, that is going to start blinking rapidly. So while that's getting ready to do its thing, again, we get into our phone, we go to settings, get into Wi-Fi, and when this starts blinking rapidly, it's going to create a Wi-Fi network that the phone can connect to. So it's very similar to Bluetooth, only it's Wi-Fi. Right now, of course, with it blinking slowly, it's looking for a model to connect to, wondering if there's something out there that has its binding phrase. And so it's listening and looking. But when that time's out, it'll open up that Wi-Fi network. Okay, so now we got it blinking rapidly. There's our Express LRS RX, so we select that. Okay, and as often is the case, it just pops right up with our page here. On this one, we're going to start over here on model, because when we're going to put in a binding phrase here, but when we put that in, it's going to not just save it, but it's also going to reboot it. So we'll do the model first, because that'll do a save without a reboot. And in here, there's a variety of things that you can do as far as setting in fail-safe settings and, things like that. We won't worry about that, but what we want to do is set up model match. Because what model match is going to do is if we enable model match and we put in the ID, and the ID is going to be the number that we gave it when we set up the transmitter. When we do that, then when we turn our transmitter on and go to a particular model, it's going to require that model to have this number in the receiver to connect to it. If we had that turned off, I could take any model in my transmitter that has the ELRS with my binding phrase and power up any model that I've got that has that binding phrase, and it'll connect. And it might be the wrong set of settings for that particular model. So by doing it this way, it makes sure that it's being done correctly. So we hit save, configuration is updated. Now having done that, now let's go back to options. And in options, we got the binding phrase. And so in the binding phrase, we want to put in the same binding phrase that we used to set things up. Yes, he is. Okay. Done. Okay, and so now we just simply hit save, and upload has succeeded, reboot to take effect. And so you hit reboot. So we've saved the model match settings, and we've saved the binding phrase, and now she's all set to go. Now, we've got everything all set up, and let's say we've got this in the plane and it's all hooked up and ready to go. There's another matter I want to share with you, and that is about telemetry. So, first off, we've got an ESC, we've got power that would come from that, channel 3, 1, 2, 3 going from this end. Okay, there it is in channel 3. We apply power to the ESC. Okay.
Telemetry recovered.
Okay, it's now connected. With the arming, one thing I didn't mention is that if we had servos hooked up to this, they would work even if I haven't armed it. Okay, the arming doesn't disable your flight controls and stuff like that. It disables the stuff related to the FPVs. So they would still work, but our dynamic power would not work unless we have it armed. So for my enabling the throttle, that's what I use for that, and that also arms it. And now I've got a throttle that works. And it's armed. So we've got that. But let's talk about telemetry a bit. If you go to your model settings and you go to the very last item on there, that is your model with telemetry. Now, if you don't see a bunch of stuff here, what I'd suggest that you do right at the start is go up here and actually delete all. Do you really want to do it? Yep, because it's really easy to replace them. Okay, so having deleted all, we then want to go to Discover New. So we hit that. We just let it run for a few seconds. Doesn't take very long at all because it's sending hundreds and hundreds of packets per second. So then stop. And then as we scroll down, we will see we've got all of this telemetry data that's coming in here. So a couple of key ones: receiver quality. You know, what percentage of the packets are getting through to the receiver? Of the hundreds per second, is it, just a couple hundred? Is it 100? But it's a percentage figure. So 100% is ideal. It has the signal strength from the receiver, the signal strength received by the transmitter. Tells you the receiver battery voltage and all of that. With your receiver, depending on which receiver it is, but with many of the Radiomaster ones, you've got this little telemetry probe, that little JST connection that plugs into the port there. And with that, you do one of two things with this little lead here. You either plug it into the balance connector where the red lead is, or you soldered up your ESC to have a little lead coming out of that you connect it to. So either one of those is giving you that output voltage of the outside. So you see now this receiver battery, 11 volts, 11.1 volts. That's the actual voltage of your battery. Okay, so if I unplug that, RX battery, it's just going down to the 5 volts. It's just giving you the volts that is actually received by the thing. But that's overridden by the voltage of the battery pack if you plug it in there. Okay, so now up to 11 volts. So it's either giving you the voltage that's being received by the receiver itself, or if you have this plugged in, it's going to give you the voltage of the overall battery pack. Should I want to know what the voltage was just for a couple of the cells, I could get that. If I want to get the voltage for just one of the cells, I could get that. Okay, so it's pretty marvelous. So you'd plug it into the final output one. And as I say, that could be, and ideally this is what I always try to do, is just solder in that extra wire onto here. And just make sure you have it such that it can be unplugged in some way. So on this receiver, it plugs in here, so that's fine. I've got another receiver where it's actually soldered into the board, and so that one I've got a separate connector along the way. Okay, so as you have all of this great information, you can then display it. Okay, now let's hit our bottom button here, and I want to set up widgets, and I want to pick that one. Okay, let's pick battery check analog. Let's give it a dark color and save it and go back. Okay, bat check analog is the one that seems to work for this. So there we've got our battery voltage, and it's telling us a percentage, and it's got this little bar graph down here on the side and a picture of a battery saying, hey, we got problems here. You know, this voltage is really low, and this is giving us a per cell voltage. So it's great to have that, having our time remaining showing there. But then up here, actually we don't want current there. Let's pick that top one. I do have some that have a current sensor with it, and this one wasn't set up for that. Okay, so now I've gone to the top bar. I set up widgets. Instead of current, I want the voltage, or not the voltage, I want the percent. So it's already the value. So I want to say the transmitter quality. Okay, so that's what I want there. And I don't need FDEA. This was set up for a ELRS, for a DSMX thing. What do I want there? Let's say the receiver quality. Okay, back. Transmitter quality, receiver quality, and who knows what else we might want. Now, let's get the signal to noise ratio, huh? Okay, how noisy the environment is. Yes. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. You can have up here whatever you want. I don't know why we got rudder showing there. Put whatever you want up there. And you've got all this great information that as you're flying, you can see the quality going each way, either to the receiver or to the transmitter with the telemetry. You got your battery voltage, you got the time, you know, fabulous, all of this information that you can have with telemetry. Just one final thought on telemetry. if you get one of these El Cheapo receivers, got this great, what is it, 7-channel? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-channel receiver. Tells you on the back, you know, what the channels are and all of that. But it's also got these 2 spots right here, negative and positive, and that is for your voltage sampling for telemetry. So you got a plus and minus with 2 separate things. Just stick a wire in there, pop a little bit of solder onto the back of it, and there you've got a telemetry connection. And this is the one that I told you about where I add a little connection along the way, because this end will be soldered onto the ESC, and I want to be able to disconnect this from the ESC if I need to. Well, hey, I don't know how I rate on the simple scale as far as the setup for the ELRS, but I trust that it's something that you can do. Keep in mind that on the website there is the write-up on the instructions, so having watched the video, go to rcgym.com, download this document, print it out, and you can work with that as you work with your radio, and it'll remind you of the things that I said and help you from, you know, missing things and stuff like that. Should you have difficulties along the way, hey, we got a comments thing down below, and yeah, I'm certainly happy to help you as far as troubleshooting things and stuff like that, but I think it's well within your capability. So the question just simply is, do you want to go through that extra work to get the benefits that ELRS can provide? Having that security, that telemetry with even the most basic receivers and all of that? Is that something appealing? Well, if so, go for it. Well, I'm RC Jim signing off. You have a great day. Enjoy your flying. And of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe and then have a look at another one of our videos on the channel.